Hey, welcome to the Black and White Vlogcast. And today I have a very special guest. I have Gerard, and I hope I don't screw up this last name, Exupery. I think I already did, but that's okay. We'll call him Gerard, and I'll give you all of the information that you need for his website and so forth. But Gerard lives over in New Jersey, and it's interesting. He fell in love with photography, and this is the case with a lot of his older people. His dad gave him a Rolleiflex. He worked for high school newspapers. He attended the School of Visual Arts and studied with Lizette Modell at the New School. His first job, he claims, was driving a taxi in New York City. And I think anybody that lives in New York City has probably driven a taxi in their life. And
Not the rich people.
yeah, a lot of people. And in 2019, he self-published his first book, Subway, New York City. And if any of you, and I have ridden the subway in New York City, it's unique. I was born and raised in Chicago. We have a sort of subway there. We call it the L, but it's nothing like the New York subway. And I think when you see Gerard's images, you'll see that he's really captured the feel of it. And we've got a lot of information on his new book coming up, which is Women Hold Up Half the Sky. And I'm going to show you some of the images of that. And I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. And Gerard, how are you doing, young man? You look to be fit as a fiddle.
Oh, my ex-wife probably wouldn't agree with you, but I'm doing well. Had a
And
very pleasant holiday.
you guys are over there in the COVID capital of the world. Unfortunately, you've remained healthy, I take it.
Well, it's interesting. I've had a back issue for the past 3 years, and I was scheduled for the surgery a year ago. And of course, they canceled it, and I'm probably going to have it within the next few weeks. But, I had been stuck by myself, and so it was really not an issue. What was an issue, though, was what the hell do I do with my time? And basically, that's what I started on the first book.
Well, I've taken a look at some of the images of the first book, and we're going to give our viewers a chance at about the second half of the interview to take a look at those also. You're interesting. You've woven like a lot of us, we're not commercial photographers, but you've woven your photographic career into your normal life. I mean, and becoming a street photographer in New York, it must have been a challenge at times.
Well, when I was a young man, I thought I was going to be like David Hemmings in Blow Up. I was going to be driving my Rolls Royce and have models. And the first job that I had while I was still going to visual arts was as an assistant to a fashion photographer. And I became aware of the fact that is a kind of a very at that time, a very misogynistic world. And that as in terms of spiritual fulfillment, it was lacking. And I decided I was just going to do it for me, whether it made money or not. I was just going to do it. I've carried a camera with me every day of my life since I was little. And, that has garnered the images that I have, it's never been a job. It's never been a job for me. It's just been a passion.
And that probably makes it more pleasurable. You go out when you want, you shoot what you want. Now, for all the gear nuts that may be on the channel and listening to it, we'll go through one gear selection. What camera have you been using? And I'm assuming you shoot with film, but I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't make any difference whether you do or you
That's
don't.
Very funny.
I know some of the images, but what for the gear nuts? What kind of camera are you using for your street stuff in New York?
Depending on my circumstances over the years, I've shot like with an Olympus 35, a little camera, film camera. I always had Nikon. Sometimes I had to pawn them to pay rent, but I always got them back. And, I became aware of digital about 20 years ago. And a very good friend of mine gave me his old Nikon Coolpix. It was 2 megapixel camera. And, the state of the art at that time was pretty abysmal, except for the fact that, wow, I can get a decent looking image pretty quickly. And so a few years go by, of course, I'm still shooting film, and Fuji comes out with this camera, and this is the original X100.
Oh,
it has okay. It has shutter speeds, it has f-stops, and all you really have to know is your f-stops and shutter speeds and ISO, which if you grew up when we grew up, you know, it's not some mystery. And I started shooting with that, and I would say that was my primary camera for a long time. And then I went to a Fuji XE2, and then an XH1. And it's been great. And I think Fuji makes some of the best gear for street photography. I would compare it to the Nikon F3 HP, which I used for many, many years. The lenses are beautiful. They make lenses now that are like the old Nikon lenses. They're metal and they're built like a brick, you know what. But I was fortunate enough a couple of months ago to have something published in a magazine. And the editor said to me, because I kept saying street photography, which was, I just called my work. I never called it street photography, which I kept calling it street photography. She said, no, your work is fine art. And I thought, nah, I wouldn't say that. But she said they don't accept film. And she was very happy that most of the subway pictures were film. And it got me thinking, why did I ever switch to digital? And I really didn't have a good reason other than convenience. Yeah. So a couple of months ago, when I had some of my Fuji gear stolen, I decided to sell the rest of it. And I got this Leica film camera. And it's the only camera I'm using for the time being.
Oh, good for you. What is that, like an M6, M4?
Oh, it's an M4P, the cheapest one you can get.
Okay.
I always wanted one. Wanted one.
Well, I started back in film myself, and I was out shooting yesterday, and I have a couple of film cameras, but the one I was using yesterday was called kiddingly called the Texas Leica. It's a Fuji GSW 90. It's a 6x7 120 roll film. So I have to ask you on your shooting and street photography, which I've done some of. On your shooting, a lot of guys now are, I think, you correct me if I'm wrong, are shooting from the hip when they use digital, and even sometimes when they use film. In other words, they don't want to disturb the, whoever they're shooting at. Do you shoot from the hip? Are you still using the eyepiece? What is your technique?
I think everything's permitted. There are no rules. If it's a good picture, hey, if you grab my camera and snap a picture, that's my picture. Yeah, I mean, there are no rules. And if it, if like Duke Ellington said, if it sounds good, it is good. However, that was one of the things I noticed about shooting digital was how easy it was, because I didn't give a crap about how much film I was shooting, to just pop off some frames and see what I got. And, so I got some gorgeous images like that. At the same time, I used to shoot when I shot in the subway. When I first started, I was a suburban kid, and I was scared. I mean, I wanted to be like Diane Arbus, but I didn't know my rear end from my elbow, and I was nervous. I was just this nervous kid in New York City, and but I had a Nikon F2 with no meter, but you could pull the pentaprism off the top and stare down into the focusing screen and see what's happening across from you. So when I would sit on the subway, I would act like, oh, what's this camera? I don't know how to use this. Oh, there must be something wrong with it. I hold, and by the time I got finished with my little act, people weren't paying attention to me. Generally in New York City, you think people are paying attention to you. Well, they're not. And I would just be able to snap my picture. And it was a while before there's something about shooting covertly, which I do not like. However, at that point in my life, that was what was great. But that is not, like shooting from you say shooting from your hip. Well, I shot from my hip looking down into Penta prison. I mean, you know, I've taken many pictures and I've seen many pictures taken where the guy's got the camera and, you know, it's just going back and forth in his hand as he's walking down the street and he snaps a picture and suddenly we have art. And you know what? You want to call it art? That's fine. If it's beautiful, that's fine with me.
Yeah. Um, you know that I've never run into and I've shot in England or London and Paris and so forth, and I've never really run into anybody that's objective, and when they have, I don't shoot them. Have you run into any, you know, crazy characters that have really gotten upset this because a lot of people talk about the fear factor
Yeah.
in street photography. Have you run into any crazy situations, or have you just like myself, you know, somebody says, hey, you know, don't take my picture, I don't take their picture, it's not a big deal. What's been your experience?
I have never had a bad experience in shooting in the subway or on the street. I did have one, and I'll get into that in a second. But you know, I think it's how you approach. You know, if you're walking around covertly shooting pictures, people get a sense of that.
Yeah.
You know, you may only be there for a few seconds, but if you see something great and you want to continue taking pictures, if you do not look like a nice person or smile or, you know, and I say it's being vulnerable. It's like allowing yourself to open up to whatever situation is happening without forcing a situation. That avoids a lot of issues. You know, if somebody says to me, "Oh, don't take my picture," I say, "Fine." Or they say, "Why are you taking this picture?" I say, "Oh, it's for my class," or "It's what I do," or whatever. It depends on the person. And what's great is you can take an opportunity like that. When somebody says, "Don't take my picture," or "Why are you doing this?" You can just sit and talk, smile. Smiling is important, and kind of ingratiate yourself to the person, and where you'll end up maybe being invited to come along to this birthday party, or which just happened to me, or this drug dealer who said that he was interested in talking
Yeah.
to me, or and you know, it's like if you're afraid, that will kill your street photography. So you have to come up with mechanisms to
Yeah.
make other people not be afraid of you.
Yeah, you've got to put on your thick skin a little bit, but you're right. I think if you look like you're skulking around and you put your black hoodie on, you start taking pictures, then people feel a little bit threatened, which is you don't want to do. And I think your approach is 100% as to, you know, what you should do. I think it's a prescription that will, if you want to do street photography, listen to Gerard here, and I think you'll get some good tips. Hey, Gerard, why don't we take a look at your upcoming book? How's that?
Okay,
Let me get to the
fine.
let me get to the images, and
Excuse
I'm
me.
going to cut away here for a minute.
Good, because I
Okay.
just want to get my smoking
Okay.
thing in place.
Okay. Oops. Let me cut to the still. There we go.
That's one of my favorites.
You know, I have to tell you, um, when I looked at this at first, there was when I looked at this young woman, I thought, you know, this sort of typifies 95, 98% of, you know, the young women. She looks, you know, like she's out working. She might have some kids. But going back to your book, she's holding up half the sky, isn't she? What are your,
Yeah, you know, I, you know, I wrote, I've actually, you know, I write um, short stories or very long paragraphs to a lot of my images, and I've only started doing that in the last couple of years. I would never consider myself a writer, but I've written a piece about her because you know, I have an eidetic memory for whatever reason. I can tell you when I look at a contact sheet who I was dating at the time, who my friend was, where we were, and um, with this particular little woman, I was standing with my friends off to the side. That's on Madison Avenue. And I jumped out because I saw her crossing the street and I jumped out in front of her. And I said, "Oh, may I take your picture?" Blah, blah, blah. And no, I don't have time. And she tried to walk around me. And I kept walking backwards. I said, "Oh, please, please, please." And, you know, it's years later. You see that look on her face is like, "Come on, asshole."
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's like, it's like she is so much better than me.
Yeah.
She is. You're absolutely right in what you say. And it made me aware of, and it was, my new book is about women because I've always thought. All right, I'm saying something about a microphone here. Oh, okay. Um, you know, hey, I just live my life and I take pictures all the time. I wasn't going to be Ansel Adams or anybody else, but you know, hey, I'm out there and I always have my camera. So what do I document my life? And she was, she laughed. Um, she tried to walk around me and I blocked her. And, thinking back on it over the years, I thought that was almost like an assault, which you wouldn't even really think about. But I love this picture because it does make me think.
It is. It is a great picture. Let's go on.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Am I giving too much information when I'm talking? Am I talking too much?
You're doing fine.
Thank you. I don't do this very often.
Oh, that's okay. Not everybody does, but
Yeah.
reaching out to do this is a good thing for both of us and for the lot of photographers. This is another shot. You've the fact that I'm assuming this is a Muslim woman, with her thing on, but from what I know of history, Muslim women have sort of been disregarded, in their culture.
Yes.
But I think including this photo in the book is important because they're just as important as any other, group of women that have worked like crazy to support their end of the deal. So
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
That's taken, that fence there, real New Yorkers will know that's Trinity Church, which is directly across from the old World Trade Center site. And I worked at One World Trade Center on the 83rd floor for several years for a creative services group of a big bank. And it was the best job I ever had, at least great job. I've had very few jobs where I sat in a cubicle or had to do anything corporate, but that job was just incredible. In any case, I was down there to take some pictures, and I just started walking across from VC Street over to where City Hall is, which is just to the left of where we're walking there. And she was in front of me. And, there was just something in the way that she was walking, the way she brushed past me, that came across to me as being very strong. It's a hijab she's wearing. And I've known many Muslim people. And, you can make a lot of knee-jerk reactions about people. But I don't really care. I mean, as long as you're not pushing me out of the way or whatever. And so I was just walking along, and I thought, God, she is so beautiful. Even if I'm only looking at the back of her, she is so beautiful. And you're right. So many. God, I don't want to sound like an idiot, but so many of the people in our lives who are so important. Women, go totally totally unnoticed. And, some of the most incredible experiences in my life, the best, most incredible, including having my sons, I had to be kicked. I mean, I had to be dragged, kicking and screaming by a woman to get there. I'm not going, and it's because of women that I learned how to say yes instead of the automatic no reaction.
Let's take a look at the next one.
Okay.
Okay. Why don't you? This obviously looks like it's someplace on. Well, it's. Is it like Times Square or is it?
That's on Madison Avenue, but uptown.
Okay.
That's on a corner. Right opposite is where the Citibank building was under construction.
Okay.
At the time. And I was walking around with a friend of mine. One of the things about, I think, street photography, or whatever you want to call it, is doing it with somebody else, unless it's a very particular kind of person, is not conducive to making good photographs. And generally, I like to just leave me alone. However, I was with somebody who was a good friend of mine, and he is in this picture in the background. And I just stood on the corner, and very often that is what I will do. I will see a corner or a doorway or something, and I'll just stand there because I think something is going to happen along here. People are just going to be people walking by or coming towards me. And if I make myself not an obstacle, I can take as many pictures as I want. And that's exactly what that was. Just to the right there was a mailbox of some sort. And, I just was standing. Nobody was going to walk into it, and I'm just standing behind it. So I was able to take that picture.
I remember Gary Winogrand was sat by a bus where they unload the buses in New York City.
Yes.
And just sat there all day and took pictures. There's sometimes no need to run around.
No, there are pictures everywhere. Yeah, right. It's interesting. It's like when I was a kid, it was like, I would say no. Do you want to go to the Home Depot with me? No. Do you want to do this? And, I'm driving to New Brunswick for blah, blah, blah. And, it's like when I realized, I'll just bring my camera with me. And there was always something to shoot.
Yeah.
If it was one picture, who cares? If you didn't get anything, who cares? But if you don't have it with you, and if you don't open yourself up to new situations, you're not going to really progress as a artist or creative or whatever you want to call yourself.
This next image, I think, exemplifies the book.
Ah, yes. That is the cover image.
Is that the cover image?
Gosh, yes, it is. It's right there.
It's great. I don't think there's a lot of explanation needed here. I think it's a young girl or a woman or whatever holding up that sky that you referred to in sort of a metaphorical kind of way, but it's really good. I love it.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got the next one, and there we go.
Oh, I love her. She's my girlfriend.
The gal with this is your girlfriend?
No. I call her my girlfriend because every time I come across her in Lightroom, because I have a billion crazy copies. I don't know why, but I always end up with all these copies. I see her and I say, "Oh, good morning, sweetheart."
So apparently this was right off, or not Coney Island, I would imagine.
It was Coney Island.
It was Coney Island. Okay.
The fishing pier at Coney Island.
The fishing pier, and apparently she's caught a fish.
Yeah.
And she's showing it to her young daughter. Huh? Is that what?
Well, at that point, she's showing. You see, this was a situation where, they see you with a camera. Well, it's like, is there film in that camera? Which is one of the stupidest questions I ever heard. It's like, is it? Oh, may I take your picture? Oh, this is so interesting, blah, blah, blah. And so she's holding it up for me. But her daughter there, that look on her face is
great, isn't it? Okay. Yes. Here is a gal having some fun. This was at, just sort of letting loose, a part of what women unfortunately for many, many years were unable to do, and I think you captured this well.
She is. This is a party. My very good friend Mark. We both worked at Chemical Bank. He is a very successful corporate industrial photographer, and he does a lot of things on the side. But he and I have been friends for 40 years. And his wife and I were dating when he met her and stole her. And so they've been married for 30 years. And when I met her, she designed lingerie. Well, she decided to start designing latex, which is kind of in the fetish world, that is kind of a thing. And there are plenty of people who like wearing it. I mean, that is not something I do, but one of the things that just drives me is I want to know about people's lives that are different from mine. So this was at a party. It was at my friend's birthday party, actually.
Oh,
and
okay.
Everybody was in latex. And, it's funny when you ask people, well, why do you do this? What do you get out of this? It is like the most innocent
responses that you get. You would think, ooh, something with sex or whatever,
Yeah.
but just, people like to dress up. People like to feel different.
That they certainly do, and I think you certainly captured the expression on this gal's face. She's having a great time. Okay.
She actually drove monster trucks at state fairs and things. That was her job.
Oh, wow.
And that guy behind her, who the hell knows what he was thinking about?
Yeah. Monster trucks. Well,
Yep.
let's move on to some of the shots in your book from the subway,
Sure.
and I've got some of those here that you've sent me. Uh, oh yeah, loving the subway, huh? I mean, young love, that's for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, young love.
She, the guy I knew, she was some new girl. And we had gone out to dinner or whatever. We were going uptown, and um, his mother was actually a well-known fashion designer, and they had bucks, and they lived on Park Avenue on this penthouse. And it's, my mom used to say, it's as easy to fall in love with a rich girl as it is a poor girl. It's as easy to have rich friends as it is to have poor friends. In any case, so we were all traveling uptown, and that woman did not like me, or she was a girl at the time, because she kind of saw me as, how am I we going to get rid of this guy? It's like was I some idiot or something that was going to realize that, oh, they want to be together. In any case, we're standing in the subway, and I don't know why, but I sometimes I'm always picking the camera up and looking through it, or just pretending that there's a frame there. And I said, and they had been making out most of the evening, and then they were just doing it, and I grabbed that. And once again, if you're paying attention, you get good shots.
Okay.
And that is actually the cover of that book.
Yeah, you know what? As I said earlier in the broadcast, see, now I never saw that on the Chicago L when I rode that thing. I mean, this is really a little bit unique to New York, isn't it? Even in Paris, I've been on the metro in Paris a lot, and you never see this. I mean, it's just unique, isn't it?
That was on the Lexington Avenue IRT going downtown. That was around 28th Street. And, they were sitting together, but they look like they shouldn't be sitting together. And I'm just sitting across. And, I've just learned to keep my eyes open. And not because I'm looking for anything in particular, but just because I find human behavior so hysterical and so poignant. And they were talking about something, and she was like, well, and she goes back to reading the paper, and he just turns off to the side like he's praying for something. And for whatever reason, I used to call this my Pieta, and I know it's not a Pieta because it's not, Mary holding Christ or whatever, but there was just something about this relationship that I feel very fortunate that I was able to see. And the fact that it's grainy and contrasty, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just it's just a nice interpretation.
I think the presentation of the photo, as far as the graininess and so forth, really, reflects the nature of the photo.
Yeah.
What I like here is I like all the vertical columns separating the people. It gives a real good sense of space, and it sort of compartmentalizes the photographs. So almost like you have at least two photographs here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good photograph. And let's see. It's Lafayette Street. Okay.
Yeah, Broadway and Lafayette. I was just standing on the platform. If you live in New York City, I mean, when I was a kid, I had turned 13, and my brother was just home from Vietnam, and he took me to see 2001: A Space Odyssey in Times Square at the Cinerama Theater, and it was amazing. But the best part of the day for me was going down into the subway. I'd never been on a subway before, and it was like magic. Wow, you went down here, you put in your 15 cents, you got on the subway, and it was like the transporter from the Starship Enterprise, and you come out of ground over here. And the thing that captivated me when I started living in the city and or being there all the time was the fact that uh, it was like a play with a constantly changing cast and scenery. If I just sat there long enough, I was going to see an awful lot. Not so much these days because of cell phones. And I'm not making a judgment about cell phones. I'm sure there'll be something else in 20 years. But uh, people were a little bit more engaged, I think. And um, hey, you know what? I forgot what I was talking about.
Well, that's okay. Let me go to the
Oh,
next
yes,
photo.
okay.
You've got these lovely, lovely ladies here.
Oh God, yes, I remember that.
Apparently, I don't think they know each other.
No, they do. That's the mother and two daughters.
You got to be kidding me! Wow.
No, because I understand enough Spanish.
Uh-huh.
They were arguing about something, but I'm sitting across from them, and when I started going to school, the only camera I could afford was that Nikon F2 with no light meter. It just had the standard pentaprism, and I had a 50 millimeter lens, and which is why that's cropped so tight. And I just was sitting there playing with my camera like I did, and got off the pictures. And at first they were ignoring me, but you can tell there, like they just shut up because I was taking their picture. It's funny because my brother loves that picture. He thinks it's the best picture I ever took.
It's a good picture. It says a lot about human nature. And talking about human nature, here's another lady.
Oh my God, I can't believe you picked that one. That is
that was
my ex-wife loves that. In fact, I had to give her a print of it for her last birthday because she said, "Hey, you never gave me that damn print," and she just loves that picture.
Oh, it is a great picture.
What do I call that? Brooklyn. What do I call it? Yeah, it's just like if you know Jewish people from Brooklyn,
right?
And there is an attitude and the way talking about things, and that one on the right. Well, she was going to tell this woman on the left how she was wrong about something. I don't remember what they were talking about, but you can just see it in their faces.
Oh, and are you going to go into another printing, do you think, on your Subway book? Okay.
Absolutely. The new book, because it's larger, has so many more pages. It's 2.5 times more expensive to print than the first one.
Yeah, I was going to say, now on the first one, some of the self-publishers use Blurb, and
yes, and Blurb is great. Blurb makes it
great. Yeah, it is. The quality's good. I've just finished a book myself on Blurb, and it really is good. I mean, the quality's good. They do a good job, and they're pretty fast, aren't they?
Yes, and when they print, they do the small run. They always, anything below 500 books is going to be on. It's a photographic paper that they actually use, and they use photo printers to print those pictures. So it's not like offset printing or anything. And so the quality is good. And this year I'm trying to do a book every year, but this year I wanted to do a larger landscape book, hardcovered, and 150 pages.
Oh, wow.
I just started writing a couple of years ago, but some people like what I write about photography, and it was suggested that I include some of those stories about these women. And so I had to seal off about 25 to 30 pages just for text. And I've got 1,000 images. You don't really know what you got until you start digging through it.
Right.
And it was that way with the Subway book, that there were so many pictures that I could have put in there. And it's like that with this new book. But
when do you expect the new book to come out? It's an Indiegogo funded
Indiegogo campaign.
Yeah.
April.
April. Okay, super.
I've pretty much finalized the images I want to use. today, and the layout. The only thing I'm wrestling with is the I've never thought of my pictures in terms of money, because after I decided, oh, I'm not going to be David Hemmings and a fashion photographer, I'm going to end up starving to death. And and it's interesting. The times I've had money and I've not had money, and you know what? It's interesting that I tended to be happier when I didn't have the money, but I did other things so that but I always did the photography. And people would say, "Oh, I like that print," and I'd give it to them. And if I could give the book away, if enough people liked it, I would certainly give it away. So the first book I kept at $35, 35.15, and I gave free posted. I sent it no shipping charge, and I sold out of them. And I'm going to do a second printing, but the new book is so much bigger and more that I'm really concerned about coming in at like a $65 price point. And I say that my friends will say, "Oh, but your stuff is worth that." And I've always been like, "Oh, I'm lucky they let me in the door." It's like I don't think in terms of money, and that sounds kind of fey, I guess. But hey, you know what? I've taken these pictures over the course of my life, certainly over the last 40 years, and they are my life. And only in the last few years have I become proud of them and wanted to show them, because there was a long time that I never showed my work.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I mean, from an observer's point of view, I look at Photo Eye every day. They send me an email, and $65 is not outlandish for a photo book of that size and that
oh, thank you
quality.
for telling me. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
65. I mean, I've seen, and some people put their signature on it, and they could get a little bit more, 10 or 15 bucks more per book. But you might want to look at Photo Eye. They do have a lot of books out there, and
Hmm.
boy, at $65, you're very reasonable. And quite frankly, those are coffee table books where people pick them up and they look at
Right.
them, and quite I think it's I think 65 is okay. That's my opinion. You know how I'd like to wrap this up, and I saw this in your interview with, was it Mark McQueen? Is that correct?
Oh, what? Because he wrote the intro to the Subway book.
Yeah. Anyway, um,
He's a great guy.
if you
You guys
had
should
a if you
Google
had
him.
a for the younger people that are listening to this vlogcast, if you had, and I know you listed about 10 or 11, but things that maybe even more things that photographers ought to look at or think about. What would you give me your top three things that you would recommend to young photographers to think about? And I noticed none of it was gear, which was fine. But what are your top three things that you ought to tell the photographers uh, as we part on this vlogcast? What would you suggest?
Um, the first thing would be expose yourself to the other arts, to painting, dance, film, um, learn how to sketch, because all of these things will inform the eye that you're going to develop. Because when you are a young person, your brain has not been tenderized enough to be sensitive to what it is you're taking a photograph of, at least the stuff that I've done. Until I had experienced a little bit of life, which is, being in a bar fight, getting dumped by a girl, getting fired, whatever, being in a car accident, where as you grow older, a sensitivity develops. So that's number one. And paying attention to the other arts. Hey, look, even if it doesn't make you a better photographer, it'll make you interesting at parties. So that's number one. Number two, one camera, one lens. That's it. I don't care if it's digital or film. Everything else is bullshit. Can I swear? Everything else is bullshit, because, um, it's like, if you don't learn your tools and thusly learn that, the tool isn't as important as the eye and the mind, you'll make that tool work. Um, you got to get your priorities in order. So, and the third thing is beware of your ego and all this stuff that people talk about equipment and megapixels and everybody's shooting film now, whatever. You know what? People are talking about it. You should be out taking pictures. And if you really want a project, go do something, photograph something that annoys you or that you don't like. Because when you something visually like that and you're developing your eye and you leave yourself open, when you leave yourself open and vulnerable, you see many things that you never noticed before.
Well, thank you, Gerard. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I hope to have you back on when your book is out. Like to talk about some, more of the images that are going to be in the book, because I think it'll be an interesting book. And as I said earlier, don't worry about the $65. You're going to sell that thing like crazy.
I hope so. Sometimes I have nightmares. Like I woke up the other night thinking, this Indiegogo campaign is going to start, and I'll be sitting there, and nothing. There'll be nothing. But I've been very fortunate. I was given a gift that I kept to myself for so many years, and people have been very nice. I've had nothing but I've met nothing but the nicest people, and with compliments and what have you, and those pictures are such an investment. They deserve a life of their own.
I think you're right, and I think a book on a project like this is what I've been screaming about on this vlogcast. Get out, do a project like Gerard says. Don't worry about your equipment. It's not a big deal. And he's
It's
right.
nothing.
Yeah. Well, Gerard, you take care and have a great first of the year.
You too. Hey, thank you so much. Obviously, I love talking about photography. I could just go on for days. And I did warn you that you might have to restrain me, but thank you so much. This has been very enjoyable.
Oh,
and I hope we can do it again.
we will.